were also targeted. It's just an allegation, but what would they have been looking for? Fernando speaking to Matthew a little bit earlier. Well, this is BBC News, and coming up in the next few minutes, big shock at Wimbledon. Serena Williams, the #1 seed, is knocked out in the women's competition.
We'll get the latest from Wimbledon in the next few minutes. Now, they let us cross the news.
Hello again, this is BBC News with Matthew Muriwala and me, Emily MAITLIS.
Let's have a look at our main stories here this afternoon.
There's very funny things afoot at Wimbledon today. Let's take you straight to Francis, who can give us an update. Shed now to our main story, and President Obama has described as heroes 19 elite firefighters who died battling a wildfire. The specialist, so-called hotshot team, had been drafted in to tackle the fires near the town of Yarnell, that's just outside Phoenix in Arizona. All its members lived in the same tight-knit community. Those elite crews are trained to battle the nation's fiercest wildfires. They go through specialised training and are often deployed soon after a fire breaks out. Sometimes they hike for miles into the wilderness with chainsaws and backpacks filled with heavy gear to build lines of protection between people and fires. They remove brush, trees, anything that might burn in the direction of homes and cities. Crew members are trained to dig into the ground and cover themselves with the tent-like shelter made of fire-resistant material. But in this case, the men were overwhelmed by flames. Well, all 19 of those men were from the town of Prescott in Arizona. I'm joined now on the line by John Rost, who's a news reporter at the local radio station KYCA. And John, good of you to join us. I imagine that the town where you are, the communities around it, are just devastated by this loss.
1:45. Let's turn to our main headlines. Let's get a little more on one of those headline stories, because the BBC Trust says it's deeply worried by a National Audit Office report criticising over-generous redundancy payoffs for senior managers. The auditors say public trust was put at risk, but they acknowledge the BBC saved money by cutting around a quarter of management posts.
Do you gasp at your mobile phone bill when you get back from holiday? That's known as bill shock. That's imaginative, isn't it? Bill shock. Do you get bill shock?
It's not just when I get back from holiday. It's all of the time.
Do you get bill shock the whole time?
Yes.
24-hour bill shock. There you go. It will be cheaper to make and receive calls from today across the European Union, as Ben will tell us.
I will, yes. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks. We'll catch up with you a little bit in an hour or so. What are doctors taught about bedside manners? The need to improve care and compassion was a key recommendation of the France's inquiry into the failings at Stafford Hospital. Medical students are meant to learn this from senior staff, but many say they witness practices that they are uncomfortable with. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes reports. It's creeping up to 4 o'clock. We're going to have a look at the weather. I'm Emily MAITLIS, and in the next hour, a massive blaze caused by a single Chinese lantern. 19 members of an elite fire crew have been killed battling a wildfire in Arizona. The men were trying to protect a small town when they were overwhelmed by the blaze, which tripled in size in just a few hours. The fires were sparked by lightning during record high temperatures in the area. President Obama has described the deaths as truly heartbreaking. Our correspondent Nick Charles reports.
Now, the BBC Trust says it's deeply worried by a National Audit Office report criticising over-generous redundancy payoffs for senior managers.
The auditors say public trust was put at risk, but they acknowledge the BBC did save money by cutting around a quarter of management posts. Well, amongst the payments mentioned in today's National Audit Office, we can talk to the Labour MP Ben Bradshaw, who's a former Culture Secretary, who joins us from our Westminster studio. What would you be doing? Would you be trying to claw any of this money back at this stage?
Well, that's a matter for the BBC management under new leadership, Tony Hall.
And a conversation we were having in here was one of the departmental directors who received the payoff was unnamed. Why would that be? Why would it be redacted? Do you understand why that wouldn't be in the public domain, or do you think it should be?
You'd have to ask an employment lawyer, I'm afraid, but it seems extraordinary to me that given that this is public money, that there should be that level of secrecy.
Just gone 1:15. Let's turn to our main headlines.
Today at 5, dramatic developments in Egypt. The army gives politicians 48 hours to sort out the current crisis. We'll have the latest from Cairo and analysis on the developing story. The other main stories on BBC News at 5. Evening, it's 5 o'clock, and our main story tonight, those dramatic developments in Egypt, where the head of the army's given Egypt's politicians 48 hours to resolve the current political crisis before the military steps in to draw up a plan for the future. In a pre-recorded statement, General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called on the parties to heed what he called the will of the people, which he said had been expressed in an unprecedented way. The statement, which has been welcomed by protest organisers, came after anti-government demonstrations stormed the Cairo headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood, demanding the resignation of President Mohamed Morsi. Well, our world affairs correspondent Aleem Makboul is on the line for us. Indeed, well, shortly before the military statement was released, President Barack Obama, who's actually on a visit to Tanzania, said the views of all Egyptians needed to be considered so that the country could move forward. Well, with me now is the diplomatic correspondent Jonathan Marcus, and from Obama, who certainly knows the lessons of the democratic process and how difficult that could be. What do you think he or anyone is imagining that political process would be now? Speaking to a spokesperson for the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK, that's in about half an hour, 5:30. 19 firefighters have been killed battling a wildfire in Arizona. President Obama has described them as heroes who put themselves in harm's way to protect others. The men were trying to protect a small town when they were overwhelmed by the blaze, which tripled in size in just a few hours. The fires were sparked by lightning during record high temperatures in the area, as our correspondent Nick Childs reports. The Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, says the public would find it impossible to understand why MPs should get a substantial pay rise. The Independent Advisory Review Body is expected to recommend their pay should increase to £75,000 a year. That's a rise of up to £10,000. Mr Clegg said he opposed any increase and he wouldn't accept one himself. Our political correspondent Louise Stewart reports. To Westminster and our chief political correspondent Norman Smith. Norman, how likely is this pay rise to go ahead? Graham, the former chairman of the Committee on Standards in Public Life. Sir Alistair, very nice of you to come in. Do you agree with Norman's analysis there that IPSA won't be immune to political and public pressure on this? They will have to back down.
There couldn't be a worse time.
Make you wonder what the whole thing was about then. I mean, you have this independent body who's arrived at, if you like, the wrong decision. The politicians make it blatantly clear they won't accept it, and the independent body says, what are we for then? Suggesting a pay rise that, as Norman said, the public will probably consider outrageous. Swing problem, right? They don't increase the MP salaries, and the next thing you know, there's the new kind of expense problem through a different back door. Bite the bullet and say we are going to increase them precisely to stop the MP scandal happening again. In the public, what they think, you know, a tax collector should be paid. You know, ask a member of the public what an MP should be paid. They probably say, oh, they should do it for free. It's a privilege. We know that's not a realistic answer.
Well,
Ask you bluntly, do you think it is wrong for an MP to be paid £75,000 this time round, and you leave it another 5 years, let's say, and then the percentage becomes bigger, it's a 20% increase,
right.
It sounds even more unacceptable. Not accepting it.
And of course,
Accepting the pay rise.
Graham,
thanks very much. 17 minutes past 5, a little bit later with the headlines.